Hello, in this iteration, which is optional or extra credit, we'll learn how to save the contacts from the list directly to a file. So where we are completed with the all 5 iterations. 4 of them are the required part, and iteration 5, managing the contact, is an extra credit or optional part. And then the last one, which is also optional, saving to a file. Uh, we follow the same steps, so the problem formulation, solution formulation, and solution implementation. In the problem formulation, we research, and the topic we want to research is iOS file management, and there is a guide on the Apple developer website that you can find the file system programming guide. So if you Google file system, iOS file system programming guide, you will find that document. If you are in class, you will find a link to it in the toolbox section on Blackboard. There are so many things about the file system that you can explore, but the most important piece is this first section, file system basics, about the iOS file system, all the way. I think it ends over here. So the OS X file system is the one used for your Mac computer, not the iOS devices. So that section, that reading, I highly recommend that you go through this to get an understanding of the basics of the file system. In short, the app is an island. This is the main concept. So your app is organized as you see in this picture in front of you. When you install an app to your phone, it is created in its own sandbox, isolated area that is made out of multiple containers or folders. So the first one is the app bundle or the bundle container. This contains all the apps and all the app files and resources that are loaded with or installed with the app. You cannot write to the app bundle, but you can read the resources that you uploaded with the app. We have used the app bundle in almost every project we've used so far. This is where our resource files were located, our music files were located, and image files, and so on and so forth. Then there's another container called the data container, and that's where the app has the ability to write or to save, and it is organized a little bit, and you can organize it any way you want. So you can create folders inside the data container or use some of those standard folders. The key thing to learn about these folders is how they are backed up, whether a folder is backed up or not. There is a table here that gives you a description about each one of these different folders and what goes inside them, and you can learn more about that. And there are other containers that you can access, like the iCloud container, or if you want to access data in other apps like the contacts or the phone, the photos, or the text messages, and so on. But these are going to be managed through library requests, so you're not going to access the folders for those directly from your app, but you're going to go to the operating system, use some of the library classes, and request the access you need, and the operating system will manage sharing that information with your app. This is for security reasons, so the app has very limited access to outside its own sandbox. The temporary folder is files that you need to create temporarily during the app, and then it needs to be removed. You need to remember to remove them, or the operating system will remove them. The library are documents and files that you create that the user does not need to see, and the documents are documents that or user files that the user will need to see, and both of them are backed up to the library folder. So this is a good read, gives you good foundation without going into a lot of technical details. If you have some background, IT student or computer science students or computer engineering student, you can go and read more from that programming guide. So now that we defined learned a little bit about the iOS file system, what exactly do we want to accomplish? There are three different cases, or actually several of them. First, when the app loads, it needs to check if there is already a file. If there is a file, it loads the content from that file. If there is no file, it creates a sample content and contact and save it to the file. So that's at the beginning when the app loads, when you load the data source. Um, Previously, when we loaded the data source, we initialized it with a sample contact. Here, we will need to check for the file. The second use case is when a new contact is added and we add it to the array, we need to save that new contact to the list. So we need a function to load contacts from the file, which is used at the beginning when the data source is loaded, and we need a function to save the contact to a file when the array has been updated. And then we have, anytime you make a change in the context, like deleting a contact or reordering contacts in the list, you will need to save the array of the contact as well. So you want to make sure that whatever in the contact array that is managed by the data source is synced with the content in the file. There are multiple ways to think about saving to a file. For simplicity, we will save the array of contacts as is. So everything in the array will go and be saved, which will create a small challenge, and we will discuss it in a moment. Then in the testing, the big thing here is that you close the app, you remove it from memory, you should still be able to see the contacts that you created. In the solution formulation, we will notice that in order to save the array to a file, you need to notify the functions that saves of how to save those custom classes, because an array is a library class, but because it's a library class, it's already defined how an array can be saved to a file. But we have a custom class here called contact, and this is something we created, so the library doesn't really know anything about. So before we ask the library to save our contact to a file, we need to educate contact, or let contact be able to inform the library of how it should be saved. We do this through implementing a protocol. We learned about protocols in module number 3 when we discussed the picker view. And we learned that the picker view itself does not really know much about the data it needs to display. So it defined, the creators of the picker view use the concept of the protocol, or the structure of a protocol, the design pattern of a protocol, to set the rules, which basically the names of the functions and the tasks they expect from a delegate. And then any programmer who wants to create a class to serve as a delegate to the picker view, they just need to implement that protocol and implement the tasks that are needed. So whoever creates the picker view just need to find who is the delegate, and then be guaranteed that these particular tasks will be implemented. Likewise, in saving to files, there is a protocol called NSCoding. And the NSCoding will require the contact to define how it should be initialized from a file and how it should be saved to a file. So we will, when we implement the NSCoding protocol in the contact class, there will be two tasks or two functions that we have to define. So we'll modify the contact class, and then we'll need to modify the contact data source class as well. Several ways. First, we'll need to create the file. We need to read from the file, and we need to save to a file. The reason I'm separating the creation of the file is that there are specific checks, because you don't want to create the file all the time. You want to create it only if it does not exist. and also you want to, from what we learned before, you want to define where you should be finding that file. So we will create a function that that retrieves the path to the file, a function that saves that saves the file, and it has to check if the file is there or not, and then a function that loads the content of the file into the array. No changes in the view. Everything is done in the model and in the controller. The controller actually doesn't see any change. The table view controller, everything is happening here in the model. So in the solution implementation, we'll start by implementing the NSCoding protocol in the contact class. Then we implement the save function, the load function, and modify the add new contact, the move, the delete to save, to use the save function after it makes changes to the array list. And then we'll run the app and test it. So this concludes this iteration, and then challenge yourself by adding additional features, either in the model by changing the contact items instead of just first name, last name, email. Maybe add more things to it, or by changing the view, changing the look and feel, changing the components that I have used, or by changing the controller by adding additional features or modifying the behavior of some of the features that we had. This concludes module 5 as well, and concludes this concludes module 5. Thank you.